Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gone Legends. In today's video, we will be honoring American celebrities who sadly passed away today and over the last few days, as well as notable figures from around the world whose loss has touched many. Before we begin, we would truly appreciate your support. Please take a moment to like this video. Your kindness helps us continue sharing these stories. Thank you. And now, let us start.
Kiana Underwood. There are names that echo through pop culture like simple refrains, familiar, bright, beloved. And then there are names that carry both brilliance and heartbreak, whose tones linger long after the screens have faded. Kiana Underwood was one of those voices, radiant, tender, unforgettable, and her passing on January 16, 2026, at the age of 33, left a silence far heavier than the sound she once made. Kiana was born in 1992 in a world that was rapidly changing, a place where media and identity were beginning to merge, where the young could become icons overnight, and where the pressure to perform, to be liked, to matter, could feel almost insurmountable. From her earliest days, there was something in her that drew the camera, something in her presence that felt alive and luminous. She carried both the vulnerability of youth and the spark of an innate talent destined for the spotlight. Her rise to recognition came early. She first appeared on All That, the beloved Nickelodeon sketch comedy show that, for millions of kids in the 1990s and early 2000s, was more than just television. It was part of childhood itself. In those years before streaming and algorithms, when Saturday mornings belonged to laughter and imagination, Kiana's presence on the screen made her a familiar face, a companion to a generation. She was not just acting, she was seen and adored. And that wasn't her only role. Kiana gave voice to Futcha Glover on Little Bill, breathing life into a character that was witty, earnest, and full of heart. Her voice became part of the soundtrack of countless homes, a warm tone that spoke of laughter, curiosity, and youthful wonder. Children listened, parents smiled, and Kiana became woven into the fabric of so many Sunday mornings, car rides, and quiet afternoons. Her career, however, was never defined solely by the roles she played, but by the humanity she brought to them, a genuine quality that drew people in, made them feel understood. She was more than an actor. She was a mirror of youthful hope and confusion, of joy and vulnerability. Yet life off-screen can be complicated. Fame sometimes lifts a person up, sometimes it isolates them. It asks for perfection but gives little grace. Kiana navigated this world as so many child actors before her have, with persistence, creativity, and a deep desire to be more than a memory. She pursued her art, she sought meaning beyond the lights, and she connected with fans who found pieces of themselves in her performances. On that chill winter morning in Brooklyn, on January 16, 2026, fate moved in silence. Crossing a street before dawn, just like so many of us have done 1,000 times, Kiana's life was shattered in an instant. A vehicle struck her, a hit and run. The driver fled as though the impact had been a phantom, as though the life that slipped away could be ignored. Kiana was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 33 years old. The news hit the world with the force of disbelief. Social media feeds filled with disbelief, memories, clips from All That, Little Bill, and countless moments where her voice brought joy to someone's day. Fans wrote heartfelt tributes not just to a performer they remembered, but to a life they felt connected to, even if they had never met her. In the wake of her passing, questions arose. The authorities began investigating the hit and run, but beyond the headlines and police reports, there was a deeper mourning, the quiet ache in hearts that recalled not just the roles, but the person behind them. Kiana Underwood's life was more than a television career. It was the story of a girl who grew up in the public eye, who gave her voice to characters that mattered, and who somehow remained deeply human amid the spectacle of fame. Her legacy is both luminous and tragic. A reminder that the brightest lights can sometimes burn too quickly, and that behind every beloved voice is a life, complex and real. The world remembers her not only for laughter and childhood nostalgia, but for the spark she carried into every room she entered, on screen and off. Kiana's story is one of fleeting brilliance and enduring impact, a life that, even in its tragic conclusion, continues to echo with warmth, memory, and the soft insistence that every voice matters and every life is precious. John Forte. John Forte's life was a tapestry threaded with brilliance, adversity, redemption, and creative force. Born on November 3, 1975, in the pulsating heart of Brooklyn, New York, he grew up amidst a backdrop of rhythm, the city's pulse almost inseparable from his own. Music was not merely sound for him, it was life, identity, and language. From the start, Forte inhabited the world not as a passive listener, but as a creator, a voice ready to speak on behalf of a generation. Forte's career took shape behind the scenes as much as on the mic. He became a gifted producer and songwriter, a talent recognized by some of the most influential artists of his time. His work with Lauryn Hill on The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill helped shape a landmark album, one that transcended genre, culture, and expectation. That project, and Forte's contributions to it, helped define a sound that still reverberates in music today. But life, as it often does, delivered a harsh turn. In the early 2000s, Forte faced legal troubles that culminated in an arrest and an astonishingly severe sentence for a nonviolent drug offense, 14 years to life. The news shocked the music world. How could a voice with so much promise be silenced so abruptly? How could a creator known for crafting songs that lifted others be cast away in a system that ignored the very humanity he had spent his career elevating? Prison could have been an ending. For many, it is precisely that, a place where dreams go to die. But for John Forte, it became a place of reckoning, reflection, and reinvention. Behind bars, he did not allow his creative spark to die. He wrote, he composed, he learned. He confronted the choices that led him there, and the realities of a justice system that devours young talent with startling indifference. After years of advocacy from peers, from supporters like Carly Simon, and from a community that refused to let his story be forgotten, John Forte's sentence was commuted. He walked free again in 2008, not the same man who entered prison, but someone tempered by hardship and sharpened by insight. For years afterward, Forte continued to make music that carried weight and purpose. Albums like Watersweet stood not just as collections of songs, but as chapters in a life that had seen both triumph and despair. He became not only an artist, but an advocate, speaking openly about criminal justice reform, about lessons learned, about the responsibility of those who survive to lift others. And then, on January 12, 2026, at the age of 50, John Forte was found dead in his home in Chilmark, Massachusetts. There were no signs of foul play. The state medical examiner opened an investigation, seeking answers. But even before cause could be fully determined, the world felt the absence swift, profound, painful. A voice that had survived so much was suddenly still. Forte's death reminded us that even those who navigate darkest valleys are not immune to life's fragility. His was not just a story of artistic achievement, though his impact on hip-hop and contemporary music is undeniable. It was a story of redemption, of resilience, of the ongoing struggle to transform pain into purpose. As tributes and memories spread, people spoke not only of his beats and rhymes, but of his courage, of his honesty, of the way he carried both his scars and his gifts with integrity. His work with the Fugees, his solo projects, his collaborations, all of it added up to a legacy that refuses simplicity. Forte's life was nuanced, messy, courageous, and real, as all truly great lives are. His story asks us to reckon with beauty and suffering at once, to recognize that genius is not exempt from struggle, and that redemption is not a destination, but a journey writ large across time. John Forte's voice may have been silenced, but the echoes of his lyrics, his convictions, and his heart refused to fade. Bob Weir, in the annals of American music, certain names are etched not just into the history of sound, but into the very heartbeat of culture. And Bob Weir was one of those rare figures. Born Robert Hall Weir on October 16, 1947, in the vibrant, restless energy of San Francisco, he came into a world perched on the brink of transformation. Post-war optimism met cultural revolution, and in that fertile tension, Bob's life would become a testament to rhythm, reinvention, and resilience. Weir's early years were shaped by restlessness. School didn't contain him, authority didn't define him. What captivated him, what truly anchored his spirit, was music. The guitar was not just an instrument, it was a voice where he could channel the rhythms of his restless heart. In those early days, he wasn't looking to change the world, but fate would eventually insist that he would. It was the mid-1960s when Bob met Jerry Garcia, a meeting that seemed casual, almost accidental, yet would become one of the defining partnerships in modern music. As, together, They formed what would become the Grateful Dead, not merely a band, but a culture, a pilgrimage, a living organism of sound that invited its audience not just to listen, but to belong. Bob Weir's guitar didn't call attention to itself with blinding solos. Instead, it grounded, it steadied. It gave structure to moments of wild musical exploration, providing rhythmic tapestry that was equal parts daring and dependable. His voice warm, honest, a little weathered by life, told stories of wanderers, outlaws, seekers, and the Dead's music, with its long improvisations and communal spirit, became a soundtrack to journeys both literal and internal. Through decades of touring, through cramped venues and open fields, through loyal fans and tireless nights, Bob was an anchor of the Grateful Dead's evolving sound. He became a figure of quiet genius, revered by musicians, beloved by millions, and respected by fans not simply for what he played, but for how he lived. And yet, life's crescendo is never predictable. After a long and courageous battle with cancer, Bob Weir passed away on January 10, 2026, at the age of 78. The official cause of death was complications related to his long-standing battle with lung issues, an illness fought with dignity, strength, and the same resilience that defined his music. The announcement came with a wave of tributes from across the world, from fans, fellow musicians, cultural icons, and countless individuals whose lives had been shaped by his songs. To understand Bob Weir is to understand more than a catalog of albums and performances. It is to understand a man who stood at the nexus of personal vulnerability and collective joy, who believed that music could connect us not just as listeners, but as human beings searching for meaning in a world that often resists simplicity. His influence was not merely technical, nor purely historical. It was spiritual. It was the shared breath at a midnight set, the collective heartbeat of thousands swaying beneath the lights. The moments when music became something greater than sound, when it became memory, belonging, catharsis, when news of his passing spread. Tributes poured in the way rivers swell after rain. They came not just from the music industry, but from ordinary people whose lives were touched by his work. People who found solace in a song, found community in a concert, found themselves in the spaces between the notes. Bob Weir's legacy is immense because it is living. It is in the riffs played by guitarists who never met him. It is in the festivals that continue to gather seekers of sound. It is in the countless hearts carrying the memory of a voice that spoke truths music rarely captures. That freedom is not just a concept, but a feeling, one that can be shared across decades and generations. He was more than a musician. He was a keeper of rhythm, a guardian of harmony, a presence that helped define not only a band, but a movement. And though his final chord has sounded, his music will never fade. Bob Weir's story is a testament to the power of art to transcend life, and to remind us that legends are not only remembered for the sounds they made, but for the hearts they touched along the way. Brad Pitt was born William Bradley Pitt in 1963, in Shawnee, Oklahoma, into a world that could not yet imagine what his face, his voice, or his presence would one day come to represent. He was raised in Springfield, Missouri, far from the epicenters of Hollywood glamour and celebrity mythology. His upbringing was grounded, ordinary, shaped by Midwestern values, quiet routines, and a sense of decency that would remain with him even as the world later projected impossible expectations onto his image. As a young man, Brad Pitt did not grow up believing he was destined for superstardom. He studied journalism and advertising in college, preparing for a practical life, a sensible career. But something restless stirred beneath that path, something unfulfilled. Just 2 weeks before earning his degree, he made a decision that would quietly alter the course of modern cinema. He left school. He packed up his life, and he drove west toward Los Angeles, toward uncertainty, toward a dream that had no guarantees. Hollywood did not welcome him with open arms. It rarely does. Brad Pitt worked odd jobs, waited tables, wore costumes, and showed up to auditions where rejection was more common than hope. In those early years, there was no fame, no fortune, only persistence, only belief, only the quiet determination of a young man willing to fail again and again in pursuit of something he could feel but not yet touch. When his breakthrough finally came, it arrived not with subtlety but with lightning. In the early 1990s, a brief appearance in Thelma and Louise ignited something immediate and undeniable. The camera loved him, audiences noticed, Hollywood took note. Overnight, Brad Pitt became a symbol of beauty, of allure, of a kind of effortless magnetism that few possess. But what the world first saw as surface, Brad Pitt understood as a challenge. Because being seen is not the same as being respected, and being admired is not the same as being understood. Rather than leaning into the easy path of heartthrob roles, Brad Pitt made a choice that defined his career. He chased complexity. He sought characters that were broken, flawed, dangerous, wounded. And a river runs through it. He revealed a quiet sensitivity beneath the charm. In Legends of the Fall, he embodied tragedy and longing. In Sevenin, he stepped into darkness, confronting the brutal psychology of obsession and despair. Each role peeled away the expectation and replaced it with depth. What emerged was not just a movie star, but an actor one willing to risk his image in service of truth. As the years passed, Brad Pitt became synonymous with versatility. He disappeared into roles with a kind of fearless commitment that defied the label the industry had once tried to place on him. In Fight Club, he became a cultural icon of rebellion and identity crisis, a character that spoke directly to a generation grappling with emptiness and disillusionment. The performance was raw, provocative, unsettling, and unforgettable. Tyler Durden was not just a character, he was a mirror held up to society, and Brad Pitt held that mirror steady. Yet for every explosive role, there was restraint. For every loud performance, there was quiet mastery. In The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Brad Pitt delivered one of the most haunting performances of his career, subdued, introspective, steeped in melancholy. It was a portrayal that stripped away myth and revealed the loneliness beneath legend. Critics took notice, not because he was famous, but because he was honest. Behind the scenes, Brad Pitt's influence extended far beyond acting. As a producer, he helped bring stories to life that might never have existed otherwise. Through his production company, he championed films that challenged power, explored injustice, and confronted uncomfortable truths. 12 Years a Slave was not just a critical success, it was a cultural reckoning. The film earned the Academy Award for Best Picture, and in doing so, affirmed Pitt's commitment to storytelling that matters. His achievements accumulated quietly, steadily. Awards followed not as validation, but as recognition of work already etched into cinematic history. An Academy Award for acting eventually arrived for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Pitt portrayed a man both cool and fragile, living on the margins of fading stardom. The role felt almost self-reflective, a meditation on time, relevance, and the ghosts of who we once were. But Brad Pitt's life has never existed solely on screen. His personal journey unfolded under the relentless glare of public scrutiny. Relationships became headlines, marriages became myths, breakups became spectacles. At times, the noise threatened to drown out the man beneath the fame. He faced struggles openly in later years, speaking candidly about addiction, accountability, and the long road toward healing. In doing so, he dismantled the illusion of invincibility that celebrity often demands. He chose vulnerability instead, and that choice reshaped his legacy. Beyond film, Brad Pitt became known for his humanitarian efforts, his work in rebuilding communities after disaster, his dedication to architecture, sustainability, and global aid. These pursuits were not performative, they were quiet, intentional, rooted in a desire to use influence as responsibility, not entitlement. As the decades passed, something remarkable happened. Brad Pitt stopped being just a star. He became a constant, a presence, a figure whose career traced the emotional arc of generations. His films grew older with their audiences. His performances matured, softened, deepened. Where once there was fire, there is now wisdom. Where once there was rebellion, there is reflection. And still he remains. Brad Pitt is alive. His story is unfinished. There is no date of death to mark his legacy, no final chapter to narrate. And yet, his place in history is already secure. He stands as proof that longevity in art is not about perfection, but evolution, not about image, but intention. His legacy is written in risk, in reinvention, in the courage to be more than what the world first demands. He is remembered not just for how he looked on screen, but for how deeply he listened to the characters he portrayed. Not just for the fame he achieved, but for the humanity he revealed along the way. In a world obsessed with beginnings and endings, Brad Pitt exists in the rare space of continuation. A legend still walking, still learning, still creating. And someday, far from now, when the final credits eventually roll, history will remember him not as a product of Hollywood, but as one of the few who transcended it. This is not an ending. This is a living legend. This is Gone Legends.